Hello, this is Jerry Mitchell, and we are back with another episode of the Libertarian Uncensored podcast, going over all the posts on Libertarian Uncensored subreddit. Let's get right into it. So first we have how I went from left to center left from Ninja Lover, and that's from slowboring.com. And I definitely think that is something you're increasingly seeing people doing, because increasingly you can't be on the left anymore if you dissent from it at all. So that's why anyone who dissents from it at all is increasingly branding themselves as center left or even centrist, I would say, or even conservative, or because increasingly the left has shown that it won't allow any dissent whatsoever, and that's why people are leaving it, I think, and that's why most people are rebranding themselves as not left but center left, I would say. Then we have TikTok offered an extraordinary deal. The U.S. government took a pass from WashingtonPost.com by Frosty Slawman. And, I definitely would agree that it should have, the U.S. government should have supported the deal. I personally don't really care for Chinese companies, the Chinese company that runs it stealing the data, but all companies pretty much steal data at this point, so ultimately, I don't think it really matters too much. I don't think the U.S. government should be saying what it should be able to ban pretty much anything, because I think that gives the government too much power. When the government has too much power, it's naturally gonna abuse that power, and that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have the Texas GOP takes the party's hostility to democracy to a new level, from WashingtonPost.com by FuckTimBeck6969. And I think this is just another kind of a DNC doom scrolling post. I posted that on Twitter recently. Reddit's mostly just DNC doom scrolling. X is mostly just RNC doom scrolling. So that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have live updates, Donald Trump hush money trial verdict from CNN.com by Dr. Who 07. And, my thoughts on that were, it's interesting how they would never hold George W. Bush accountable for the Iraq War, but they are holding Donald Trump accountable for giving hush money to a porn star, and that's something that I think is interesting. They never seem to hold anyone accountable except when they question the narrative enough, and that's my thoughts on that issue. So, don't be surprised if what goes around comes around, and if the Republicans ever take power again, they just decide to prosecute Democratic former presidents like Obama, Biden, or Clinton, and that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have great quote from Chase Oliver at the convention, and that's from the Good Liars on YouTube, and that was posted by Patom13, and I liked. I definitely like that some stuff that Chase Oliver says. I think he's more on the woke side than I would like him to be. But ultimately, I probably will support him because he seems to be the only candidate who's pro Second Amendment and not up Ukraine and Israel's ass. And that's my thought on that issue. Then we have how many MAGA terrorists will be unleashed by the guilty ruling, and then by American MWAF, and they said how many people will die as victims related to MAGA associated terrorist attacks now that Trump's been convicted. And the poll they posted was 24 people voted less than 100, 7 people voted less than 500, 1 person voted less than 10,000. And I personally don't think it'll be too much. I think it's mostly just social media. At this point, people just circle jerking on social media. People don't actually do anything anymore. They just kind of circle jerk on social media. They don't actually act violently, I would say. They just sometimes imply violence on social media. Then we have the LNC weighs rescinding its nomination of Chase Oliver due to his support for trans whites from Kevin Gohan on Twitter, and they said the Libertarian National Committee is meeting rescinding Chase Oliver's nomination because it stands for trans rights and truth. They will flout the will of the delegates because they don't like the opposite candidate. This is corruption, and that was posted by Legio X, and I think this is just kind of fear mongering, especially since this guy's left the Libertarian Party to form a new party, the Liberal Party. And I personally don't really care too much for that, I think they'll endorse Chase Oliver even if they don't really like him, even if the party leadership doesn't really like him that much. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have, did our favorite get a hot mic moment, or was he already on the playground looking for a potential wife at the time of the convention? From American MWAF, that's from Majority Reporter Sam Cedar, and they gotta be friends, like it's definitely his fraction of the party, right? I think that's implying me, and I was a guy who was on the hot mic saying, oh, stereotypes exist for a reason. And, yeah, I personally didn't agree with everything he said, but, stereotypes sometimes they do exist for a reason, and that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have United Health leaders should be held responsible for installing inexperienced CISO, Senator says from the record.media by Ninja Lover, and they added, due to his apparent lack of prior experience in cybersecurity, it would be unfair to scapegoat Mr. Martin for the UHC's cybersecurity lapses. Instead, UHC's CEO and the company's board of directors should be held responsible for elevating someone without necessary experience to such an important role in the company, as well as for the company's failure to adopt basic cyber defenses, the senator wrote. And, yeah, I would agree with that. If you have inexperienced people working for you, that you should call them out on it. Just like that's why I really don't care for all the DEI or ESG stuff, because that's just kind of having inexperienced people working for you but justifying it because they say the correct identity politics narratives, and that's my fault on that issue. Then we have anyone here from Jimmy lately from Duty Torador, and they said, I know we rag him a lot, and he's kind of the punching bags, but I noticed he went from posting multiple times a day to being almost a week with no posting or comments. And if you do find, I do find that times, I hope he's okay, and it's just break from social media, which would be good for him. And yeah, I was referring to me, and I am still here. Yeah, I'm just banging currently. I'll get unsuspended later today, so hopefully, I'll be back then. Then we have the nonprofit industrial complex and the corruption of the American city, American Affairs Journal, from Ninja Lover, and they added, yet nonprofit organizations are frequently the exact opposite of what they appear to be. As a consequence of the benefit of the doubt provided to nonprofits, there is rarely enough oversight to guarantee that they are doing what we pay them to do. In some cities, upwards of $1 billion of public funds are paid to nonprofit organizations every year with glaringly insufficient safeguards to ensure that the money is used in a manner likely to serve the public interest. And I might agree with that. Ultimately, I don't really trust nonprofits too much, especially the political ones, and that's always important to remember how it's when something's a political nonprofit, how they can skirt the law and the ability to push their narratives, something like Media Matters does. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have Supreme Court rules officials likely violate NRA's free speech rights, and that's from Lemon Limelight, and they added from the Washington Post, Supreme Court rules officially violate NRA's free speech rights. They shared some quotes from the article. The Supreme Court on Tuesday unanimously found New York State official likely violating free speech rights of the National Rifle Association by pressuring banks and insurers to cut ties with the gun rights organization after the Parkland Fire High School massacre in 2018. Justice Sonia Moore, writing for the justices, that the court was reaffirming a 6-decade-old precedent that government officials cannot use their substantial powers to try to quash points of view they do not like. The court returned the case to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit, where the NRA is pursuing a claim that Maria Volo, a former superintendent of New York Department of Financial Services, DFS, trampled the organization's First Amendment rights. And, yeah, I'd agree with that. I don't think the government should be pressuring private companies to censor because they have the force of the state on the government has the force of the state on their side, and that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have Who is Chase Oliver? Learn more about Georgia Libertarian running for president from SavannahNow.com by FuckTimBack6969. And, yeah, as I said, I'll probably vote for Chase Oliver. He's a bit on the woke side for me. But, I'm just kind of tired of Biden and Trump. And even if Chase Oliver is not going to win, I'll still probably end up voting for him. Maybe if he doesn't make the ballot, I'll go for RFK Jr. But other than that, I'll probably go for Chase Oliver. Then we have the new over-the-top secret plan, How the Fascists Could Win in 2024, from HeartmanReport.com by Paton13. And they added, I'd love to see how both sides vote to decide to be over one side of the duopoly, as well as ideas generally as to how a third party could be, for instance, rapid but technically legal version of electoral processes. And my response to that is, that's just kind of them just, saying, oh, the fascists are coming any day now. Well, the DNC actively prosecutes its political opposition. And that's something that, it's all projection, really. How increasingly, they're going to say the fascists take over the government. Well, their side is arguably fascist as well, but they would never call them out on it. And that's my thoughts on that issue. And we have Speaker Mike Johnson urges the Supreme Court to step in on Trump verdict from Axios.com by Ninja Lover. And I definitely do think, I don't know if that's the Supreme Court's job to step in on the verdict, but if I do think, since it's unprecedented to convict a former president for any crimes, that they probably should step in, especially if the appeals court if this does go to the appeals court, and that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have Timcast IRL livestream abruptly cuts, ends after Laura Loomer calls for executing Democrats from angrywhitemen.org by knee concussions. That's a crossword from the conservative terrorism subreddit. And, yeah, that's more just DNC doom scrolling, I would say. You know, there are violent people on the left as well, but they would never go after them for that, and that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have Newsmax post ominously warns you people in your cities who are pushing the party that owns 90% of the guns from Mediaite.com by Clorox, and that's crosswords from the Republican Values subreddit. And yeah, this is just kind of saying, they're threatening violence. Well, their side can threaten violence as much as they want, but you know, in reality, they're pretty much the exact same side. They all just want to enforce all their values on you, and that's not something I particularly cares for. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have Kansas Constitution does not include right to vote, as the state Supreme Court majority says, from APnews.com by Flimsy L5563. And, yeah, you know, I personally don't think you have a right to vote either, but that being said, this is more just DNC doom scrolling. You know, they're not going to take away the right to vote. You know, that would be bad optics, so they'll just continue on. You know, I'm sure if the Democrats took away the right to vote, though, you know, they'd be fine with it. And that's my thoughts on that issue. And, you know, ultimately, I don't really care too much for the right to vote. I would say, you know, ultimately, you know, voting isn't going to change anything. You know, we tried 4 years Donald Trump, and that he was supposed to change everything, but he didn't end up changing anything. And Obama's whole campaign was changed, and that didn't end up changing anything. So, you know, ultimately, I think the only real change is going to come if or when people get violent, but we'll see when that happens. Or if that happens. You know, personally, I don't think it's coming anytime soon because people are just too busy circle jerking themselves on social media. And I think we're going to wrap it up there. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye.